Well, obviously, let me make sure I frame this right out of the gate with, I'm a filmmaker in one voice, and you're asking the most important question of our time for my money, So I'll try a couple quick things so I leave room for other things, because what you're asking essentially relates to every answer there is. So first of all, I just want to say, the original thesis of the film, after I knew I wasn't making a movie about the library, I thought I was going to make a movie about the difference between the way that the women activists and the men were handling the situation. I had a erroneous, it turned out, understanding that the women were continuing a nonviolent movement and the men were shooting. And I was very wrong. It turned out that really the young women who I had originally met and interviewed by Skype and Yahoo chat over the phone, were a legitimate group, but a lot of the young women who related to men were themselves now picking up arms. And I didn't have access to any of them to show them in the film more closely, which I wanted to. But to your point, it's true that what I fundamentally understood as I spent more and more time there is that I had never in all my life seen a group of people who had done everything they knew how to do. I had been in Northern Ireland in '98 filming the transition during the Good Friday Peace Agreement. And, of course, one can say lots of things that weren't perfect about that agreement. However, watching, largely speaking, a militant movement transition to political power, and then watching a situation in which the world was conspiring to see to it that a movement would not be given the chance to switch to a political power where they would have legitimate ability to change their own destiny. It was as if the world was saying, if we allow that, then what? I mean, in a way, we're up against this question. I think there was an inherent arrogance that somehow in the first world, well, we're allowing like a sort of portrait of Dorian Gray to happen in Africa and Indonesia and Ecuador. We're allowing all those countries to have environmental sins of our, environmental results of our sins. And that disgustingly we'll sort of live with that because we're gonna fight those wars and we're gonna repress those people, but we remain so pristine. And we sort of thought, oh, well, when we produce oil here, it'll be so different. I mean, among other things, could you be more arrogant than to think oil corrupts, absolute oil corrupts absolutely? And in every situation, the notion that you're going to go from conventional oil to unconventional oil, you're going to wring the planet of the last drops that are carbon captured in a way that the planet said, don't come get me. And you're going to do that and think you won't destroy your own democracy doing it? Who thinks that? I mean, obviously, fools and madmen and rapacious assholes who actually see no end in sight to what they will do. So that is where we are. Where we are is that when you're in Nigeria, you think you're watching Mad Max. You're watching the past, the present, and the future in a very strange way. And it's a very heady thing to come home, to be free from Nigerian prison, and to be asked, at the airport if I wanted to kiss the ground. And, of course I didn't want to kiss the ground while people are being illegally detained in the US. And then, the treatment in the US of oil communities is becoming every bit as bad. So to not leave you on an utterly hopeless note about that, I think because the situation is so clear and stark at this point, I think that the activism is becoming global. So when I see a community in Roscourt, Ireland, on the west coast of Ireland, fighting Shell Oil and winning, by the way, and that all of the murals that are painted are of Ken Saro-Wiwa. And when I see that people around the world, in Bayou-La-Batre, Louisiana, the young men who are organizing Vietnamese workers were naming for me all the fishermen around the world who they're just like. And sadly, the other connection that they understand is that the dispersant being spoken about here on screen, by the way, it's called Corexit. It's illegal to use in Great Britain, and ironically, BP had a stockpile of it because of that. And they used it in the Gulf oil spill because it was killing their PR issue that those pictures of huge oil plumes at night and oil on dolphins was getting on the news. But by using this dispersant, the oil becomes microscopic and it sinks. It doesn't disappear. It sinks and shrimp eat it. And Corexit is, I could go on and on about Corexit, it's horrible. And there's a reason why it was banned in Great Britain. And one of the things that was difficult, I watched on CNN, they were interviewing these biologists saying, we don't know what the uses of Corexit will look like in 50 years. And it was all I could do, and I called the producers over and over again. We do know, because Nigeria is where they first pioneered the use of Corexit. And we know all the things that long-term that means. So I see those communities getting the connection one to another. And to me, that is the really hopeful sign. And the fact that oil companies do everything that they do to shut down even the smallest wind from small communities tells me that they haven't won yet. Because they're so greedy that they wouldn't spend the money that they spend on trying to convince people, for one thing, that they're doing good community activism, but they also wouldn't fight the lawsuits that they do at the level they fight them if they didn't think they were symbolically really important. So I'll leave it at that. Sorry, that was a huge answer.